Tonight, what I want to talk about is decisions and the way that we go about making decisions. Hey, Dom, can I have a cup of water? You know, somebody once said that your life is simply the culmination of all the decisions that you've made. I don't know who said that. Actually, I don't know if anybody really said that. But if they didn't, then, okay, they did? Oh, then I was going to claim it. Harry Potter, no. That makes me look really bad. Wow. That makes me look really bad. Somebody more sophisticated than Harry Potter once said that, okay? No. That's because you're how old? That's why, okay? I'm talking about somebody way beyond your birth, okay? Older people have said things like that. Dumbledore, okay. I feel much better. I feel dumb. All right, in the words of the famous Dumbledore, your life is the culmination of the decisions that you make. Some decisions are really small, like what side of the bed to get out of, the right side, right, that's the answer. Or to decisions that are really huge, like who are you going to marry? The person sitting on your left, or the person sitting on your right, or the person sitting behind you, or the person sitting in front of you. Who from RSD are you going to marry, right? Like, those types of very, very hard questions, right? But there's so much joy in making them. A lot of these decisions that we have to make. And, you know, what is your life but all the decisions that you've made, right? Whether they're good or they're bad, you make a lot of bad decisions, you end up with a life that is really bad. You make a lot of good decisions, and you end up with a life that is good. And we're concerned about making the right decisions, about making good decisions, so that in the end, in the grand scheme of things, all the decisions in our life will have led to us having a life that was well lived, right? In the eyes of God, the decisions that we've made, all coming together, God will look at us and say, you know what? You lived life very, very well. So decisions are extremely important. And as Pastor Victor once said, you have to take decisions very seriously. Because most of the time in life, we don't have much freedom to make decisions. So when a decision does come, it's really important for us to make the right one. The Bible has a lot to say about decisions and how we go about making the right one. I mean, in a lifetime, you make millions of decisions, right? If not billions. Every day, you might make thousands of decisions, maybe hundreds of significant ones in some way, shape, or form. We make decisions all the time. And the Bible has a lot to say about that. And the Bible, there's a key within the Bible that it gives to us for making decisions in the right way that can literally move you from the path of a life of accumulated poor decisions to a life of accumulated good decisions. There's a key to that. And that we're going to look in Joshua chapter 9, and we're going to find out what that key is that God gives us so that we make the right decisions in our life. So let's look at Joshua chapter 9. Now, basically what's happening here is Joshua is leading the Israelites into the promised land. God owns the promised land, right? It's his. And right now in the promised land, there are a whole bunch of nations that God is going to drive out through Joshua and the Israelites. These nations are like deadbeat tenants, right? God is like the landlord who owns the land. These nations are like deadbeat tenants. They're the worst tenants that you can get. They sacrifice their children. They engage in all sorts of immorality. They do crazy things, and God has finally had enough and said, I'm evicting you. I'm evicting you. It's time to make room for a new tenant. That is the Israelites, my people, right? So the Joshua and the Israelites are entering into the promised land. They've done battle with a few different kings, and they've won. And at this point now, other nations are getting nervous, and crazy things are happening, and that's what we're picking up here in Joshua chapter 9. Let's read. Now, when all the kings west of the Jordan heard about these things, those in the hill country, in the western foothills, and along the entire coast of the Mediterranean Sea, as far as Lebanon, the kings of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Termites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, no one was listening. They came together to make war against Joshua and Israel. Just testing you guys, no one's listening. However, when the people of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to a ruse. They went as a delegation whose donkeys were loaded with worn-out sacks and old wineskins, cracked and mended. They put worn and patched sandals on their feet and wore old clothes. And the bread of their food supply was dry and moldy. Then they went to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal and said to him and the Israelites, "We have come from a distant country. Make a treaty with us." The Israelites said to the Hivites, "But perhaps you live near us. So how can we make a treaty with you?" "We are your servants," they said to Joshua. But Joshua asked, "Who are you and where do you come from?" They answered, "Your servants have come from a very distant country because of the fame of the Lord your God. For we have heard reports of him, all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth. And our elders and all those living in our country said to us, 'Take provisions for your journey, go and meet them and say to them, we are your servants, make a treaty with us.' This bread of ours was warm when we packed it at home on the day we left to come to you. But now see how dry and moldy it is. And these wineskins that we filled were new, but see how cracked they are. And our clothes and sandals are worn out by the very long journey." The Israelites sampled their provisions, but did not inquire of the Lord. Then Joshua made a treaty of peace with them to let them live, and the leaders of the assembly ratified it by oath. 3 days after they made the treaty with the Gibeonites, the Israelites heard that there were neighbors living near them. So the Israelites set out, and on the third day came to their cities, Gibeon, Kephirah, Beerot, and Kiriath Jearim. But the Israelites did not attack them, because the leaders of the assembly had sworn an oath to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. The whole assembly grumbled against the leaders. But all the leaders answered, "We have given them our oath by the Lord, the God of Israel, and we cannot touch them now. This is what we will do to them. We will let them live, so that God's wrath will not fall on us for breaking the oath we swore to them." They continued, "Let them live, but let them be woodcutters and water carriers for the entire community." So the leaders' promise to them was kept. Amen. So, here in this situation, basically, all the nations in the promised land, the Canaanites, they said, "Whoa, these Israelites, they're coming, they're invading the land, we're in big trouble." So what do? They started to gang up together, right? They started to say, "Hey, let's all, team up together. I don't like you, you don't like me, but we got a bigger problem right now, the Israelites. Let's all team up, make one massive army, and let's fight these Israelites," right? That's what many of these nations did in the promised land. Except for the Gibeonites. The Gibeonites, they thought about this, and they said, "Okay, do we team up with these guys, our neighbors here, to fight these people who walked through the sea, whose God brought fire from heaven and destroyed Egypt?" I think that's probably a bad move. Right? Trying to fight these guys is probably not going to get us very far. You know what? If you can't beat them, join them. Let's join them. What we'll do is we'll trick them. We'll tell them we live very far from here. And we'll tell them that, hey, we're not in your land, promised land here. We got nothing to do with you. We're from far away, but we want to be friends. So, hey, it doesn't hurt you, right? Let's just be friends. Let's make a covenant that we won't harm each other, okay? Let's do something like that. So they lived only 3 days away. But they went around like everybody's house looking for moldy bread, right? So who got moldy bread? Bring all your moldy bread to the middle of the town, right? Who's got old shoes, right? They went around town looking for the homeless people. So give me your shoes, right? They took everybody's cracked shoes. They took all the nasty clothing and everything like that, and they put it on themselves to make it look like they came from a far, far distance, right? So when they came, they said, "Hey, this bread was fresh. Our clothes were fresh. Everything was nice. But now look at us. We're a wreck. We're a mess. Why? Because we came from a far, far away place. So make a treaty with us." And now the Israelites are looking at this, and they're like, "Hey, how do we know you don't live near us?" And then they look at their stuff, and then it says the Israelites sampled their provisions. In other words, they looked at their stuff. They checked out the evidence. And indeed, it looked like what they were saying was true. They came from a faraway place. But then, the critical thing here in this verse, the critical thing and the key to this passage, I think here, is in verse 14. It says the Israelites sampled their provisions. But what? But did not inquire of the Lord. And that is the critical point of this passage. They checked out their stuff, but they didn't ask God. Based upon what they saw with their eyes, what they reasoned with their intellect, based upon their logic, whatever you want, their experience, all these different things, when they looked at these people, they thought, yeah, that's right. They're from far away. But they weren't. And they deceived them. Brothers and sisters, God can see things that we can't. God can see things that we can't. Sometimes when we look at a situation in our life, when we make a decision, what do? We gather the facts. We look at the evidence. We go off of experience. We use logic. We're smart people. You're all in college. And we make a decision based upon the things that we see in the flesh. But there are things that God sees that we can't see. And that's why we need to inquire of the Lord. Most of us, when we make decisions, come on, okay, let's be real here, right? Many times, or most Christians, when they pray, what do they pray about? Maybe 75% of the prayers are about themselves, myself, my family, ourselves, our jobs, our school, whatever, our future, those things. We pray about that 75% of the time. Then another 24% of the time, we may pray for other people. Maybe you pray for people in your family group. Maybe you pray for one of your classmates or something like that. And then the remaining 1% is random. I don't know, whatever you pray for. Lose weight, I don't know, something or another. But that tends to be how we pray. But most of the time, at least for me, most of the time, we don't spend time praying, inquiring of God's will. Asking God what He thinks of situations in our lives. When we come to a decision, we usually don't ask God about it. We usually just make the decision the best that we can in the flesh. Do you know what I'm talking about? We think about it. We rationalize. We ask other people, and that's how we make our decision. But very rarely do we actually stop, pray, and ask God, God, what do you think about this? Is there something that you can see that I can't see? Because you're God. We usually don't do that. I'll tell you, I became a Christian junior year of high school, and then my senior year of high school, I decided, I know what I want to be. I want to be a businessman. I want to go into finance. So what did I do? I applied to NYU, to the Stern School of Business for undergrad, and that's where I went to college. I went to NYU Stern. I went there. I majored in finance and statistics. Every year, I had to make decisions, but basically it was about which kind of internship to get every year in the summers, different things like that. Where do I want to work? When I was graduating, I interviewed at a lot of different places, and then I finally decided I'm going to go with this company, and then later on I changed jobs to another company, and I did all these things. But you know what? To be honest with you, in all of that time, I don't think I ever really inquired of the Lord. God, is this what you want me to major in? God, is this the kind of job you want me to get? God, is this the company you want me to work for? I never really asked him that. I just took it for granted. I looked at what I was good at. I looked at my situation. I looked at the things that were offered to me, and I made the best decision that I could based upon the facts, based upon the evidence. That's exactly what Joshua and the Israelites did. They examined, they sampled their provisions, but they did not inquire of God. And you know what I'm doing now? I'm a pastor! I'm not a pastor of finance. I'm a pastor. I talk about money, but it's not my money. It's not your money. money now. And I'm not saying that I shouldn't have majored in finance. I'm not saying that that's useless, because I do tend to do more in finances at home. I don't know if I need a bachelor's degree to do that. I'm not saying that God didn't want me to go to Stern or these different things like that. All I'm saying is I didn't really ask. I didn't. I don't know what would have happened if I did. Maybe he would have told me to do the same thing. Or maybe he would have told me to do something different. Maybe he would have said, you know what? Go to NYU and major in Hebrew. Because there's so many Jews there, they have a good Hebrew program. They do. I took a semester of it. And then you know what? If that Hebrew, you could know the Old Testament so much better, and then you'd be a better pastor right now. I don't know, maybe he would have said that. He might have. But the point is, I didn't ask. I didn't ask. How many of you have you really inquired of the Lord? God, what do you want me to major in? God, what kind of job do you want me to get? Lord, I have 2 offers. Which company do you want me to go to? Do you really ask God about those things? Or do you just make your decision in the flesh? That's usually what we do, is we make the decision in the flesh. What about where you're going to live? Where you're going to be? Right? Some of you think, as soon as I graduate, I'll go back to California, back to paradise. Right? Or, my parents are in Canada. I got to go back to Canada or something like that. Right? We have decisions to make about where we're going to be. Why is that so funny? I have no intention of making fun of Canada. But everybody laughs. Hey, Americans, man. Canadians and Mexicans just get no love. Anybody border this. Right now, Christine and I, we've been going around looking at different apartments because I can't stand living all the way up in Harlem. It's crazy. I drive Audrey to school from Harlem to Chinatown. Then I drive back to church. And I go pick her up in Chinatown. Then I drive back to Harlem. No. I come down for morning prayer. I drive from Harlem to church for morning prayer. After morning prayer, I drive back to Harlem. I pick up Audrey. I drive down to Chinatown. I drop her off at school. I drive to church. I drive back to Chinatown to pick her up at 4 o'clock. I drive her back up to Harlem. And then sometimes I have to drive back down for a church meeting. I'm going crazy. Gas is killing me. It takes so much time. Rush hour traffic is killing me. So we've been looking around at different places. We've been looking around, and the only place we can afford, we think, is like the Lower East Side. So we've been looking around at these different places. We're kind of getting into it. Should we live here or there? Do we want to go for space? Or that place is in better condition? And all these different things. We're getting really excited about it. But you know what? To be honest with you, I need to inquire of the Lord more. Because I can get so into this, yet there is still this little voice in the back of my head that reminds me, you know what, Ulysses, you really got to ask the Lord about this. What if he wants you to go to China? Why? Because I'm Chinese? No. Chinese people don't all have to go back to China, all right? Popular but contrary belief. But because I also oversee the church in China, right? All right, maybe you guys don't believe that. Because I oversee the church in Shanghai also. And they don't have a pastor there, and I know that. And you know what? I realized I want to be here. I want to be here forever. But man, I got to be honest. I got to ask God sometimes, Lord, where do you want me to be? If it's here, great. If you want me to go to China, then Lord, may I obey. I don't want to take it for granted. I need to inquire of the Lord. Have you guys inquired of God about where you're going to be after you graduate this summer? Do you ask God about those things, or do we just take it for granted? Of course I'd go there. My parents are there. Of course I'd go there. There's a good job there. Of course I'd stay here. I like it here. Do we pray? Do we inquire of God about those things, about these decisions in our life? How about relationships? Who are you going to date? Right? How do we make those types of decisions? How much do we pray and inquire of God about that? I've shared this with you guys before about when I was, here in this church, and there was this girl, who was a part of one of our services, and then every once in a while I'd be looking at her, looking at me, right? And I would, I'd be like, oh, she's attractive, and she seems like a Christian. She's kind of serving in some ways, and these different things. And I thought, hey, this would be great. This would be great. I was thinking, oh, should I ask her out? Should I get to know her better? And all these different things, right? I can talk about this because Christine's not here. But, so I was thinking about this, and then I told you guys before. I told Pastor Victor about this, and he's excited because he wants me to get married off quick, right? Single pastors are dangerous and can screw everything up, right? So he wanted me to get married off quick. So then, he went right away. He said, who is she? Who is she? I said, oh, that one over there. That one over there, right? And then after service, he quickly went up to her and introduced himself and stuff like that. I was watching. Is it good? Is it good? Does he like her? And then he came back to me, and then right away, he looked at me. He said, no. I go, what do you mean no? You talked to her for a whole 2 minutes. What do you mean no? 2 minutes? That could be my future there. 2 minutes? And no? No. Why? Why not? It's not clear. It's not clear. What's that mean? Your glasses aren't clear? What's not clear? What's not clear? It's not clear. What? You're not clear! What are you talking about? What's not clear? But, as a good, humble, obedient, youth pastor that I was, I said, okay, I will obey, I will listen, I'll submit. You know what? Years later, with my beautiful wife, where is she now? My beautiful wife, Christine, I just realized, you know what? He was right. Why? Because that girl's strung out on crack somewhere? No, I don't know. I have no idea where she is. She could be a good girl serving in the church somewhere. I don't know, right? But I know that Pastor Victor was right. You know what? That he saw something that I didn't see. And I'll attribute that to the Lord's experience within him. But you know how I made that decision? Pretty much in the flesh. She's attractive, she's nice, we get along. Let's be honest, okay? I'm not the only criminal in this room. That's how most of us make decisions about who we're going to date. The person's attractive, we get along, we have fun, we have the same hobbies and things like that. But how much time have you spent, be honest with yourself, when you liked somebody, how much time did you spend praying? Asking God, Lord, is this the person that you would like me to be with for the rest of my life? How much time did you spend praying about the last person that you actually did date? If you did, how much time did you spend praying about that? For most of us, probably not all that much. Why? Because we already knew what we wanted, right? There are so many huge decisions that we make in our life. The question is, how much do we inquire of God? Do we ask? How much do we ask? How about this one? When was the last time you asked God simply this question? Lord, what do you think of my life right now? God, are you happy with me in the way that I'm living? God, are you pleased with the way that I am treating other people? Lord, do you think of me as being faithful right now? With my time, with my money, with my relationships with people? God, what do you think? Is there something that you see that I don't see? Do you see something in my heart that is hidden to my own eyes? When was the last time you really asked God that? Do you ask God about your time? Lately I've been playing Words with Friends. Man, it's fun. Or it was fun until I started playing Scramble with Friends. Man, Scramble with Friends is fun, right? And I love games. You guys know I love strategy games and things like that. I'm playing this. Got like 5 Words with Friends games going on at the same time. It's like 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Doesn't seem like much. But it started to add up. And then I started to think, man, is this okay? Is this okay to the Lord? He says just a few minutes here, a few minutes there, but it started to add up. And then I started to think, no! I got things to do. I have so many things to do. I got 2 children. I can't neglect my children to go play Scramble with Friends. That's wrong, right? Honey, can you pick up Noah right now? Incredible! Fantastic! You're a stud! Or whatever it says, right? So lately, I've been convicted of this, and every time I beat somebody in Words with Friends, they want to rematch me, and I've had to say, no, I'm all scrambled out lately. Sorry, we'll play in the future. They just think like, oh, he beat me, he doesn't want to play me anymore, or something like that. And I had to quit those. I haven't quit Scrambled Friends yet. But we'll see. Maybe I will have to quit that. You guys know about some of the commitments and the oaths I made to the Lord. Just January, just this past month, for the first time I looked at the New York Times.com because I had made a commitment the past year. I didn't look at it because it was taking up too much of my time. Right? Do you inquire of God, Lord, are you okay with me playing 5 hours of Tetris Battle every day? Are you okay with that, God? Because if you haven't asked, the answer is probably no. Probably no, right? What I'm saying is, we go through life, we make many decisions every day. Okay, maybe not hundreds of significant decisions, but every day we have dozens, maybe scores of decisions that impact what we do with our time, how we treat somebody, where do we spend our time, what do we do with our money, what are we focused on. We have many, many decisions to make every day. And all I'm saying is, how much do we inquire of God about those decisions? Because everything can seem right to you or to me. Anybody else will look at it and say, yep, your calculations add up just right. That's the right decision. But is there something that God can see that we can't see? They sampled their provisions, but they did not inquire of the Lord. And then what happened to these people? These Israelites ended up making a covenant with people who lived in the promised land. And because of that, they were not allowed to drive them out. Why? Because it was serious. They made a covenant before God. They didn't mess with that back then, right? It wasn't like, I didn't, I have my fingers crossed behind my back. They didn't do none of that. Like you imagine Joshua, sorry, you're being nice, right? They don't do that kind of thing. You made that before God. If you break it, you're in trouble. So they knew, we got to keep it. We have to keep this covenant. So what happened? They had to live with these Gibeonites in the land. So because of this covenant they had entered, because they did not ask God, because, they didn't ask God, did not inquire of the Lord, they were not able to fulfill God's will for them, which was driving everybody out of the promised land, those deadbeat, those people who God wanted to be evicted. They were not able to fulfill the will of God. Brothers and sisters, if we make the decisions that we do in our life without asking God, without inquiring of God, it is very possible that you will be deceived, that you will fall for the enemy's tricks, that you will be involved in covenants, commitments, relationships, things that will keep you from fulfilling the will of God. That is very possible. Did you know that you can marry the wrong person? You can. I've seen people who've married the wrong person. And it screwed up their life. Did you know that you can take the wrong job? And it can totally shipwreck your faith? You can. That happens. Did you know that you can have the wrong people in your life influencing you and that it can drag you down? Or maybe we need to ask God, Lord, what do you see in my life that I don't see? Are there covenants, commitments, oaths, relationships that are there in my life, whether it's with a person or a thing, something that I've given my heart to, that's going to keep me from fulfilling the will of God? Some people are like in these crazy, nasty soul ties with their parents. Right? It's not the will of God that they're concerned about doing in their life. It's the will of their parents. Right? Sometimes there are Christians like that. It's about their parents' approval, not about God's. We have these things within us, these commitments that we've made. For some of you, maybe it's, I will be successful at all costs. Why? Because people used to, really dig down deep, because people used to look down on me, this or that. I got something to prove, I was drafted in the 5th round as a quarterback, so now I got to be a Super Bowl winner type thing, you know what I'm talking about? That kind of thing. And you make this soul tie commitment in your heart. And that's going to run your life. And that may shipwreck your faith with God. Maybe tonight when we pray, you need to ask God, Lord, what do you see that I don't see? Is there something that you see that I don't see? Am I in a relationship, a commitment, a covenant with something? With myself? Have I made some type of inner vow that is keeping me from fulfilling your will? Or are there simply, and I know that there are, many things in each of our lives right now that if we're honest, we should be asking God about? I want to challenge you. If life is the culmination of the decisions that we make, God wants to help us to make the right decisions. He wants us to inquire of Him. The world says what you see is what you get, but that's totally untrue. God sees far more than simply what the world can see, and He knows what we would truly get in every situation and out of every decision. I want to challenge you, brothers and sisters, to be people who inquire of the Lord more often. What are you taking for granted in your life? I've got that all figured out, just like Joshua. I checked everything out. But is it possible that the Lord has something to say? That He sees something that you don't right now? I'd like us to spend some time in prayer tonight about this. Very simple message, but I want you to think about that. What are some things that we can pray about?